Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this month's March call for pending sites. I know that folks are still kind of joining us here, so I'll just give you a few minutes and just review quickly that all of the attendees will start in listen-only mode, so you will be muted throughout the presentation. However, if you'd like to submit any questions to us during the presentation, go ahead and click on the questions feature on your toolbar to the right of your screen, and you can submit any questions that you have throughout the presentation, and we'll be sure to get to those. At the end of the session, we will review those questions and answers, and again, feel free to submit those. If we don't get to some of them, you can always email us, and we'll be sure to get back to you as well. We'll be recording this webinar, and it will be posted on familyjusticecenter.org. We hope to have that posted today. You can also just sit back and listen through your computer as well. If you have any questions or concerns with logging in, if you're just hearing us on the phone, you can go ahead and email melissa@nfjca.org and let her know that you're having some problems, and we'll try to help you out. Let's see. So this morning, our topic is location, location, location. We're going to be talking about how you go about selecting your location, what goes into that, things that you want to consider when you're creating the environment of your center. And with us today, we have Rebecca Lovelace from the Nampa Family Justice Center. She is actually joining us in person in San Diego. She's here with us this week, and so we want to welcome her and thank her so much for being here with us. And we also have Robert Keach here, who many of you know from the California Family Justice Initiative. Also has served in many capacities at the San Diego Family Justice Center, from operations director to even the interim executive director. And I think we have, let me see here, we have Jennifer DeCarly, who's also here. I can see her on our screen. Jennifer, are you there with us? Might have to unmute her. Jennifer is joining via her computer. She's joining from the Brooklyn Family Justice Center, and Lieutenant Julian Harvey we hope to have joining us very soon from the Anaheim Family Justice Center. So we want to welcome our co-presenters and get started on the presentation. Thank you all for joining us. So first, in selecting your center, we wanted to really just start by looking at the vision of the Family Justice Center. Many of you have seen this, that our vision is where a future where all the needs of victims are met, where children are protected, where violence fades, aggressors are held accountable, economic justice increases, families heal and thrive, hope is realized, and we all work together. We really want to, choosing your location really goes into supporting that vision and creating an environment where this vision is realized. And so it's really important to stick to your vision and hold tight to that. We'll want to encourage you to dream big. Some of the things that we wanted to look at, first and foremost, is what services do our survivors want? And the only way to find that out is to ask them. We really encourage communities to do focus groups, and not just one time, but really focus groups throughout your planning process, and that may be on different topics. We don't want to just create a center or a building, but we want to create an environment where clients and staff feel comfortable and want to return to. So how do you create that environment? And you really can do that by doing focus groups with clients as well as with your community partners. So what services do you want to make sure that you have on site there to really serve your clients? How can you create how can the center create a community? And that's really bigger than just the center, but when you choose a location, you want to think about how can we involve the community around us? That can be through food that's donated. You connect with your local restaurant and involve them, have them bring in food once a week. You put thank you plaques up in their business, point of business, and really reach out to the community and have them be involved in your center. When you move into your center, you want to think about how you can avoid the us and them in the center. That's really looking at your work cultures. When you have many different work cultures that come into a center and you all start living together at the same time, how do you create an environment where there's open communication and it's not we're all working together for the same vision. We're not taking sides, but really if we bring it back to the clients and looking at what are our clients' needs, we can avoid some of this. How do we create a community instead of just a building? This is much bigger than just, okay, we're going to go find a building and put some services together and stir and add water and there it is. It's much more than that. There's a lot of heart and soul that goes into this, and it's an opportunity to kind of transform your community's way of thinking as well and get the buy-in of and support from your community. So really looking at some of those things. How do you create a shared vision where you share the credit, the glory, and the space with your other agencies and service providers? These are some of the things we're going to be talking about throughout this presentation. How do you do that? So it's not just one person, one agency who is moving this forward without the support of other partner agencies. The work of the Family Justice Center is done by many. It's not just the work of one. So when you're looking at the design of your center, how do you recognize that? Do you dedicate rooms to some of your donors? Do you dedicate rooms to some of the providers that maybe have worked very, very closely in the planning process? Do you put plaques on the wall? Do you notice and recognize your other agencies that have participated in fundraising events and publicly recognize them? We want you to be thinking about the location as more than just a physical building, but really, and when looking at these questions, really creating a center that pulses with laughter and children and your clients, and creating an environment that they'll want to continue coming back to. Tulane University, a student actually called all of the different centers and surveyed what are the services that are offered. This is kind of a list of what most centers throughout the country are offering. Criminal justice service providers are located on site at most of the centers. Prosecution and law enforcement, medical services are offered at many of the centers, along with civil legal center services such as restraining orders. And child care is always a big thing. What do you do when the client comes and brings children? You need a location to tend and offer a place for the children to be. Child welfare is on site at some of the centers. We'll be talking about that and how you co-locate child advocacy centers with a family justice center. And some of these other things are really about looking towards taking care of the basic needs of the client: food, public benefits. Those are all things that you'll want to think about when you're bringing in your providers and services. Some of our lessons learned, we want to look at the fact that Casey and Gail will attest that when they first started, they thought prosecution was all where it's at, but they'll tell you that it's important, but survivors they don't always want to see them unless they need them. So you want that to be something that is available to clients, but not forced upon them. This relates to the client intake and your client flow. Clients should be allowed to choose their services. They should be offered an array of services and ask what their needs are and match the needs with their services. We talk about bathrooms. It's funny, but it's true. You really need to think about where your restrooms are located in the layout of your center. Are they password protected? Do you have a key code to get into them? We laugh about kids should want to have their birthday parties here, but it's true. Julian from the Anaheim Family Justice Center will tell you about the child care facility on site with them that was adopted by the Disneyland, and so that's an option to look at when you're building your children's room. I wanted to kind of reach out. Julian, have you joined? I can hear a little bit of sound, and I don't think.
Yeah, I'm here.
Hi.
Hi.
Do you want to talk a little bit about the kids' room while we're in here, and
Sure.
how you worked with Disneyland to get them to adopt your room?
Yeah, well, obviously Disney's a big player in the city, and we reached out to them early on, and they jumped on board. They brought over their Imagineering crew and did the room in the only the way Disney can do. So there's like a pirate ship and murals on the wall and place for the books and the toys. It's pretty clever. So yeah, they were great. They came in, they did everything and supplied everything. So if you have anybody in your city that is in that type of industry, worth reaching out to, even if they're not Disney. So that was great.
It's beautiful, beautiful. We wanted to all hang out in there. I think when we came to visit for the first time when you first opened, it's incredible. And so take advantage of those. Take advantage of the businesses that are in your community that have that ability to adopt a room and put them to work, because it really the result is just incredible. Security, we wanted to talk about that a little bit too, that it shouldn't be intimidating, but security should be first and foremost, in your planning process when you're building your actual center, that it should protect your staff and clients, and really to use the expertise of your police, who are part of your planning process in your security planning, because they're the experts. So I think I wanted to reach out to Julian and Robert, who are here with us too, if you had anything to add, if you had any lessons, since we're on the topic of lessons learned, any security things that you realized after you opened that you made some adjustments to or changes when you opened. Many communities are doing bulletproof glass when you come in and see the reception, and reinforced walls, and that protects your staff. And then many communities have key-coded secure areas. Once clients gone through a screening, then they enter in the secure area. But there's other things that that come up as well. And so I wanted to just ask if Julian, we'll start with you. If there's any things that you made adjustments to post-opening, and things that you recognized and lessons learned in the area of security.
Sure. We knew we needed the glass, the protective glass, and the magnet-controlled doors. And you're just like you said, the only people that get past the lobby are people that pass the intake procedure. So what we have changed since then, though, is our procedures in terms of standard operating procedures. We've kind of refined that whole process, because we do occasionally have violators show up or follow the victims or the clients here. And in fact, we arrested one yesterday, made a big scene down there. But there's a procedure in place for the receptionist to follow a few certain steps if that ever does take place. And that has been the most effective thing we've done to minimize the threat to people in the lobby or the potential for someone getting past that shouldn't. It's your procedures. So the physical structure is only half of it. The procedures you put in place, if and when a violator shows up, what do you do? What do you say? Do you go on the PA? Is there a button to push? So that's the changes we made.
That's fantastic. And it just reinforces that, you know, a center is more than just the building. It really, like you said, it's the policies and procedures that you put in place. That's really where the services come to life, and how you make everything flow. And Jennifer, I see that you're online. Are you able to hear us? Are you there? I think, just a note to Jennifer, I think you might be logged in on your computer, but you'll need to dial in on your phone if you are able to join us by phone to participate, and that should be on your toolbar there. And I wanted to also, we have Rebecca here with us as well too, and if there's any, I think security is a really big issue, because it's important to look at protecting your staff and your clients, and also how do you incorporate security in a way that's not intimidating and built into the design and aesthetics of your center. And I think NAMPA's done that really, really well.
We have the same kind of setup like Anaheim. It sounds like the door off the street is open to the public, but you stay in the lobby and you go through the intake procedure before you pass through and enter the Family Justice Center, which is a locked door once you complete the intake process. And just like Julian said, we do have the occasional offenders show up, you know, following the victim, or it's sometimes who gets to the Family Justice Center first to file the protection order that we've had to deal with lately. And it is the policy and procedures that you do have in place that make it a safe environment. We do have a bulletproof glass window when you walk up into the intake. That is, again, you can't tell that when you walk in, so it's not intimidating at all unless you know that that's what it is. And about 2 or 3 months ago, we installed a panic button. So as we go along and as things happen or don't happen, you want to prevent things before you happen, you just put those little measures in place and just make sure that you follow your protocol. And that is the best thing that you can do to prevent an incident.
Absolutely. Robert, I know you have a lot to add given your experience and from the ground up planning the Family Justice Center.
Well, from a security standpoint, San Diego is going to have 3 opportunities to put this together. When I was initially involved in the original center, we're in a public building, a high-rise building, and so you really can't tell there's a Family Justice Center inside. So there is a security station in the building, and you come up to the floor that we originally had. We had a chance to include a lot of the security issues in our first phase of providing co-located services, and a little over a year later, we were able to build out a whole nother floor, about 12,000 square feet. We had a chance to do it even better. We incorporated the same ideals. As Rebecca has mentioned, we included a panic alarm system, and what we did was our PD, or our police department, and our detectives were located on a different floor. So when the panic alarm is activated, they respond down from another floor using the stairwell. So we have procedures in place on how they would respond. There's an alarm that goes off on their floor. They know why the alarm is going off. They know where to go. And the other thing with our procedure that we actually do is we actually test it. So just like a fire drill, we do a panic drill to see how our law enforcement responds and to see if our staff are well trained to handle their response. I mentioned 3 different opportunities to install security issues. San Diego Family Justice Center is going to be moving to its permanent location. The build-out is already occurring. September, they'll be moving into a new building that eventually the city will own specifically for the Family Justice Center. So it will be San Diego's 3rd time to implement even new ideals that we learned from other sites throughout the country. But the most important thing is to make sure that when a victim comes to your center, the first thing they see is not security. But the security is very present in evidence, but the feel that they get is a sense of community and a sense of home and belonging and safety, and that it's woven in and incorporated in every part of what you do.
I do want to add to that. When we did a focus group back, I believe it was September or October of last year, that was one of the main things that our clients told us, that when they came to the Justice Center, they did feel safe and secure. They knew there were things in place to keep them safe and to keep staff as well safe, but they didn't have that feeling. Police are not the ones that you see when you walk through the door. And another thing that we did probably going on 3 years ago that needs to be redone, and I say that every time I think about it, about 3 years ago we had the SWAT team come in and we did a hostage negotiation scenario. You know, we don't want to think about things like that, but it's a possibility in centers. And so we had our Nampa Police Department SWAT team come and we ran through some scenarios, and it was very enlightening, not only for us but for the team themselves, because it gave them some insight into the building layout. And we have what do you call them, skylights in our buildings, and that really threw off some of the echoes and the voices in the building, and shadows, since we have frosted windows for identity protection along the outside of the building. That's just a suggestion that I'd like to throw out. When you guys are settled in there, really get your police involved. That could really be helpful someday. We hope not, but again, as a preventive measure.
Thank you so much. And Jennifer, I think you've just joined us via phone, and so I wanted to throw out to you any input. I think security is really important, so I wanted to spend a little bit of time here getting input from everyone. If there's any lessons learned, you know, when you're looking at security in your building, things that you may have changed after you moved in together and started providing services, what are some of the things that you think are most important? And your building's quite a bit different than others.
I'm a little technology impaired, so I'm now unmuted. We did actually change some things, and our center is in a very large high-rise building in downtown Brooklyn, and it's over 20 stories, and we're on the 15th floor, and it's actually a law enforcement building. So when you enter the building, you see a lot of law enforcement presence. So because of that, we needed to figure out a way to check in our clients that would not be intimidating. And so we have our own special check-in desk in the lobby of the high-rise building with a security guard that's been specially trained. And I think I echo everything that everyone's been saying. Your center really needs to be about your policies and procedures and your willingness to always kind of look and change things because we did change a lot. We actually took out our bulletproof glass that we had in front of our reception, and I think it's because our building is set up so differently. Once you check in the lobby, you are cleared, and you go through metal detectors, and you come up elevators to the center, and there's locked doors to even get into the initial waiting area, and then more locked doors to get into the bigger waiting areas. And because of our bulletproof glass, our receptionist actually couldn't hear people. And so she was screaming at people. And so it just didn't make sense for us because there had already been so many clearances before you actually arrived at the center. So we actually got rid of our bulletproof glass. So I really just think it depends so much on what your building's location is, that some of those decisions are obviously going to come from that.
That's really funny. I appreciate that. That input. That's really unique to know, and it does make a difference on where on what kind of a building your center is in, and each community has chosen differently. You know, so these are just things to think about as you move in and as you're planning your space and your design. I want to kind of continue moving along to other things you want to think about. That the location can be anonymous, but it doesn't need to be secret. So that may mean, you know, for example, if you're in a high-rise building, maybe on the marquee downstairs in the lobby, it's just, you know, Family Justice Center, and your logo's not all over the place, but it's just it's discreet, so that clients feel like they can come in and everyone's not knowing where they're going. That can be in a mixed-use building. As in the case of the San Diego Family Justice Center, it is that way. The marquee, they're walking into a bank building, so somebody could just as easily be going to a bank as going to the San Diego Family Justice Center. And the location should be pretty close to the courthouse. If you intend to have, if your attorneys will be located at the center, you can buy them those really great wheelie bags where they can walk down the street and make sure they can get to court. Also, if your clients are going to and from court, maybe for restraining order clinics, that sort of thing, it is helpful to be located very close to the courthouse. Transportation is a very big issue. You should be thinking about being close to public transportation if you're in a community that utilizes public transportation. Are you near a bus line? Is it easy to access? Is it safe to walk to and from that bus line? Is there free parking available at your center? Can you validate parking? This was a really big issue. I'll speak for San Diego. That was something that was a do-over, I guess, as we say, that it was a big lesson learned that we didn't adequately budget for parking. We're in a downtown area, and that was extremely, extremely expensive. Parking is extremely expensive. So other communities might not have that problem. I know in the case of Anaheim, Julian, you have a great parking structure or parking lot that's right outside. Easy to access, but I also noticed you do have a fence, so it is secure as well.
Yeah, the fence is, it's a wrought iron fence, probably 8 feet high, and we have cameras that record every angle of the building, so it's quote unquote secure. There's no preventing someone to get in there. The electronic gates and all that, and our front doors are magnetized. Like anywhere, if someone wants to get past all that, they will, and they can. So it comes down to the staff knowing what to do if something was to arise. But you're right about the location being. We put ours close to very busy bus lines and located in a fairly dense part of town, so people can walk here, which we have found beneficial. And so. It's a pretty prominent building in the neighborhood, so everyone knows about it. It's easy to find. That helps.
I think it's helpful for not only for your clients, but sometimes staff take advantage of this as well, too. So that's something to think about. And I know in Nampa, Rebecca, you had mentioned that public transportation isn't quite as easily accessible, so you probably thought about other things going into your selection.
Yeah, parking wasn't that much of an issue for us because we have a little public transportation, but it's really nothing to speak of, and we're not at all on the line that goes up and down through town. Our parking is just in our parking lot where our staff and clients park in the street. We don't have to worry about validating parking or anything like that. Our parking issue is that there is not enough. Now that we have so many partners coming and so many clients coming, so that really is our issue. And we don't. Our windows are frosted around the perimeter of the building, just so if clients are in the kitchen where we do the intake, that's right off the street. So the whole front of the building, the side or the street side of the building is frosted for confidentiality, whether you're in the kitchen doing the intake, in the lobby waiting, and the detective side of the building on the other side is all frosted just for that. And we have a sign on our door, but again, we don't have any, big glowing sign that here we are, but you have to look for us. So,
thank you. And Jennifer, I don't know if you have something else to add too. Being in Brooklyn, I'm sure transportation and parking looks a little bit different than it does in Nampa, Idaho.
It does. We are centrally located next to about 10 different subway lines, and that's really crucial for us in the city. So if you're in a large city planning a center, I think that's really, really important to be near your transportation, your subways, your buses. I also think it's so critical to be near the courthouses. We are near all of our courts, our criminal courts, our family courts, our Supreme Courts, and for doing collaboration with the courts, it's just so much easier when you're right next door. So that has worked out really wonderfully for us.
That's great. Next, I think we're gonna talk a little bit about the actual building options. There's a lot of different options, whether you're in a public building, is it rented space from a private landlord, are you able to purchase a building, are these mixed-use buildings or standalone buildings, so there's different options for that. So we're just going to kind of go through, you'll see some photos of some of these. Julian, there is the Anaheim Family Justice Center. About 25,000 square feet, I understand, is your square footage, and you just purchased it?
Yeah, it's actually 19,000 square feet, and we did just finally close the deal on that. We used some HUD money we borrowed against future CDBG payments and actually own the place now. It is a standalone structure, which I think is beneficial because sometimes it gets noisy and there's a lot of traffic in and out, and I couldn't imagine sharing it with another tenant. It'd be, one of us would be unhappy with the other, so we're happy to have it all to ourselves. So yeah, that's it. We're having an event in that parking lot, I think, next week, where we're going to be giving away a bunch of car seats. So having a nice big parking lot, easily accessible, helps too, at least for our community.
That is really neat. That's a great way to utilize your space and look at sustainability too, because if you own the space, you're not having to rent out space to hold your events too. I've seen many a parking lot transformed into a gala. It's incredible what you can do with tents and awnings, and it's pretty incredible. So that is, thank you for sharing that. That's really great. And if you could talk a little bit more about how you started the process going down towards purchasing. You know, that obviously you've been open, and this wasn't where you started, but you've kind of moved down that path. You know, if you could talk a little bit about how that will help your sustainability and how you've moved towards this.
Sure. It started out back when they were searching for a site. It was more driven by where the best site, and then we had a local entrepreneur businessman actually purchased this site and leased it back to us for the last few years. It just was it was really the only way we could have done it. So we've been leasing it. That has not been cheap. So the concept isn't going anywhere. The center's not going anywhere. All the people that work in here aren't going anywhere. So it became clear that we needed to buy this place. And so because of the rough economy, we had to get creative. And working with the city's housing department, we came up with a plan to use future allotments to CDBG, and that's Community Development Block Grant Funds, HUD funds, to forego smaller projects around the city like building a wall or a sidewalk for a period of about 10 years in order to do 4 large projects, this being one of them. We had to go on a speaking tour to go to all the different neighborhoods around the town to kind of answer concerns or questions that people had that do want their sidewalks and their walls built instead of this. So the city kind of rallied around it. The residents understood the need for it, and so that's what worked. And so we won't have to pay that big nut every month any longer either.
That is terrific. That's really great. We're really excited for you too. Let's see. We're going to move on. Tulsa's not here with us, but just briefly, it's nice to, I'm sorry it's not the best photo, but it's nice to see some other centers as well. This is, they have the first floor of a building. It's approximately 10,000 square feet, and it is a privately owned space that they're renting. As you go right in here, you can't really see it that well, but they have the bottom floor. So there's other businesses going on around there as well, and like Julian said, you'll want to think about who are those other tenants that are, if you're choosing to go into a mixed-use space, who are those other tenants, and are you going to get along with them as well? Because you can get quite a bit of traffic through your center, and so, you know, are the other tenants that are around you appropriate, and, you know, maybe you can create a partnership with them, but maybe it's not so appropriate if it's, say, like we have the men's legal center down the street here from us, we probably wouldn't want to be right next door into the same building if you have offenders that might be accessing those services as well. So this is just another option. South Bend, Indiana has about 20,000 square feet of a building. Sorry, again, kind of a grainy picture, but it's a rented office space where they use the entire space here. San Diego, of course, is in a high-rise building downtown. Downtown San Diego, about 40,000 square feet. Recently, they have downsized a bit to now we have 3 floors of the building, but it is mixed use, and the city of San Diego pays for the lease for the floors on this building. It is a bank building, so the bank's on the first floor. You'd come in, and there's just the San Diego Family Justice Center name on the marquee, so you're not seeing lots of signage until you actually get into the floor and would see that it is the San Diego Family Justice Center. Ouachita Parish, Louisiana, has about 15,000 square feet. There's 2 buildings next door to each other, the FJC and then the Child Advocacy Center in the other building. It's rented space, and they've built security into these beautiful buildings, kind of southern looking, the big pillars and porch, but they have built in their cameras and have secure entries to come in as well. Nampa, the Nampa Family Justice Center. This is a shot of their building. I'll have Rebecca talk a little bit about their center.
Our building is owned by the city of Nampa. It has been owned by the city for years and years. When we got our building, we also renovated our building using CDBG money, just like Anaheim. We, years ago, probably a year or 2 before we knew the road we were going down with the Family Justice Center initiative, Detective Weeks, who is the visionary behind this whole program in Nampa, collaborated with the city, our community development director at that time, and we wrote a grant to use money to renovate a building for a family justice center. And they gave us CDBG money 2 years in a row for the renovation and remodel of this building right here. And the first year that we were awarded money, right after the city council meeting, the mayor asked Detective Weeks what building we had in mind. We had just given them money for a remodel of a building, and he said, so we gave you this money, and do you have a building? And she said no. And so right there on the spot, he gave her the Mangum building. This is the building that they gave us from day one for use of the Family Justice Center. And it has just shown the incredible support of the city and the city council from day one. So 2 years in a row, we used that money to renovate our building. It's 10,500 square feet on the top, and there's a full basement. You can't see down the side street over there, but we do have a full basement that we are gently trying to take over. In the basement, there are other city departments because the Family Justice Center is a city under the city of Nampa. We're a department under the city of Nampa. There are about a dozen other city employees in our basement. That about a year and a half ago, they remodeled when they were moving the other city employees in. They remodeled, and it looks just like the Family Justice Center upstairs. So they knew that one day was going to be our phase 2 and our expansion program, and so that's what I'm trying to get them to do right now. So eventually, I'm hoping within the next few months that we will have the entire building, the 20,500 square feet, because I don't know if it was Julian that said, we like our neighbors, but they don't like us very much because there's about a dozen of them down there, and we have kids running up and down the hallways, and we get a lot of traffic up there that I'm sure they don't like hearing about with us on the top floor. So one of these days, we'll have the whole building to ourselves.
Thank you. And I think that's a really important comment to make, that just because you may have moved into a building, Rebecca talked about phases, you may move in and have a certain amount of space to start with, but you really want to be thinking long term. like, going after the rest of the building if you have that opportunity. So as your funding grows as well, you can continue to expand and as they say, dream big but start small.
I had no idea. Nearly 6 years, it'll be 6 years this summer that we started this, and I had no idea that we would one day outgrow this building. It was amazing. I was like, wow, this is huge. And now I'm cramped, and I need double the space, and double the space will just satisfy me. I mean, it will just, I'll be full. I won't have to layer people anymore. It'll be full. So if you really just always plan on needing 2 to 3 times the space that you're actually going to get.
That's definitely a lesson learned. Definitely. Thank you very much. Crystal Judson Family Justice Center in Tacoma, Washington. Their building is rented by the city of Tacoma. There's a shot of their building, and I don't know why we didn't get Jennifer in here. I'm sorry, but if you could talk a little bit, you mentioned, where you are physically located, and oh, here we go. Sorry, I didn't skip far enough. Brooklyn, Jen, if you could talk a little bit about your floor plan and what that's like to be located all on one floor. Some communities have their space is a little bit spread out, might be on multiple floors, but if you could talk a little bit about your layout and how you went about renovating that floor.
So just to back up 1 second, we look a lot like San Diego, just to picture a high-rise building, and we actually are in a city leased space that the district attorney's office leases. So we're on the 15th floor of that building, and the reason for that is frankly because when we got the initial federal president's grant in 2004, if we would have had to use that money to rent office space in downtown Brooklyn, that would have been our grant. So we were really, really lucky that the district attorney here in Brooklyn basically kicked off an entire floor of his assistant district attorneys, so we weren't very popular when we first opened, to house the entire center within the district attorney's office building. So because of that, we thought the floor plan was really, really important because we all were going to be on one floor. It's 25,000 square feet, so it's a very, very large floor. And we actually grouped by professional discipline. So the color coded that you see on the PowerPoint actually corresponds to stripes on the walls when you're at the center. So the maroon side of the center is what we call the criminal justice side, where all of the district attorneys reside, and the police and our probation officers. And then the color-coded side is what we call the civil or social services, the community side of the center. And that's where we have 13 nonprofit advocate agencies, 4 civil legal agencies, my administrative staff, because I work for the City of New York for the mayor's office, and we receive the grant with the district attorney's office, and we administer the operations at the center. And then our spiritual care program, our children's room, our waiting areas, you can see in there. And it may seem like a small thing, like putting stripes on the walls, but it actually has been really, really, really essential. It really helps with training for people to understand their roles and confidentiality, and why it probably wouldn't make sense for a district attorney to sit right next to a civil attorney, because you may have clients coming here that may not be participating with criminal justice, and as Brenda said in the very beginning, that's absolutely fine, and so you wouldn't want them visiting a civil attorney and feeling intimidated or uncomfortable if the assistant district attorney was right next to them. So we found it incredibly helpful to group by professional discipline here and to use those stripes on the walls to kind of correspond to what group you are.
That's awesome. We joke that it's kind of like air traffic control sometimes in a family justice center.
It is.
That's wonderful. This is just an example of the San Diego Family Justice Center, of course, that's in multiple different floors. This is our this floor was our administrative floor. They've actually moved everyone down into another floor, but we're still holding the space. It's really helpful to have a large space where everyone can come together, to have some meeting space. It helps with your internal communications if you want to hold trainings or community partners meetings. I think that's really important for continuing to have open dialogue and communication, so everyone knows what's going on. And the San Diego Family Justice Center are initially grouped much like Brooklyn, where we had our law enforcement prosecution on separate floors. So that was separate from the actual service delivery floor, where clients are provided their services. So that's something to think about, grouping them separately, and then having kind of a community-based org client floor that is in a different space than the police and prosecutors. Clients should be given the opportunity to know what services are on site, and if they want to access law enforcement services, they're there for them to access. But that it may be intimidating sometimes. That may not be the first place where they want to reach out to, and so they should have that option, when coming into a center.
And, if I could just echo one thing about that point, is that because we all are on one floor, in a perfect world, we probably would be 2 floors here, because like many of what Rebecca has said, I echo that we've outgrown our space here in Brooklyn. But I think it is really important to have 2 separate waiting areas. So clients that come in to see the district attorney's office or police initially have one waiting area, and law enforcement officers who are meeting with district attorney staff about the case sit in one reception area, and then we have another reception area that's for social services side, and we obviously do a lot of collaboration back and forth. That's why we have the center, right, to collaborate, but it is so important to have the clients be able to choose what services they want. And, it can be tricky. I often find law enforcement, laying down on our couches, because our couches are more comfortable on the social service side, and so we have to have conversations about that. But I do think it's important, if you are all going to be co-located on one floor, to just have conversations about what makes the most sense for your community and kind of making sure everyone feels comfortable. So.
I love it.
Yeah, the fun things that you never think of.
I love that too. That's great. I'm not going to tell my law enforcement though, because I'll find them laying on my couches too. As we are moving towards moving into 2 floors, the way we will space it out is exactly how they have done it. We're going to move them to the law enforcement, the prosecutors, and we have health and welfare, child protection on site. So those 3 governmental agencies will go down into the basement on the 2nd floor, and the 1st floor will just remain all of the victim advocacy nonprofit works, with still just one entrance, one public entrance. So I hope now, Jennifer, we don't run into the same problem that you're going to have of needing different waiting areas, because we certainly don't have that. But again, the way the floors will be broken out between governmental agencies and non-government.
Thank you. And Julian, I wanted to just come back to you, and if there's any other things you'd like to offer about what it's like to have a standalone building, any of the pros and cons about having a standalone building and access for clients.
Well, I guess the cons would be cost. Clearly you're going to pay more for a standalone and having full access to the whole building. So that's a definite con. That's probably the only con I can think of, unless you like irritating your neighbors. But the pros, you mentioned earlier the conference room, the meeting room space. We have the luxury of having a big auditorium that we open up to people in the community that serve a similar mission, and that room gets a lot of use, and that's one of the ways we get the word out about our center. And so if there's any way you can incorporate an auditorium or a large meeting space, it's amazing how few businesses and even governmental organizations out there don't have facilities like that, and they really need it to do their regular quarterly meetings. So being able to offer that, I've found hugely beneficial. So no, we love having a standalone structure, but I guess the downside would be cost.
Mm-hmm. And Rebecca, I wanted to kind of point it to you. I think you have a really unique situation where the FJC is a child advocacy center. Very recently,
About a year.
About a year. So if you could talk a little bit about that and what are some of the pros and cons and things that have come out of being a child advocacy center now.
Well, the pro is that I don't know if it's a pro, but it makes perfect sense because we are small. It's our same detectives, it's our same social workers, it's our same prosecutors who prosecute our domestics versus our children's child abuse cases. So it just really made sense that we become a children's advocacy center. And we brought in the child protection unit for the city of Nampa. The investigators are there on site. So the con, as it says there, it may intimidate victims afraid of child protection. Really, in the 4 years that they've been on site now, I've had one phone call to me that says, why did the Family Justice Center take the kids, take my grandchildren away from their mother, is what it was. And I explained to her that it wasn't the Family Justice Center, that these are the child protection, and it's law enforcement in Idaho that declares kids. And she was like, oh, okay. So the pro, again, is space. We make that partnership because we don't charge any of our partners, to be at the Family Justice Center. So that's a really good selling point, to have them come and have an office at the Justice Center. And it really has worked tremendously. Having the child abuse investigators and law enforcement and prosecutors all in one, working their child abuse cases, it has worked just as well as it does with domestic violence cases. So like I say, it's the same people doing the same work. It's just now that we're all in the same place. And because we now are a certified children's advocacy center through the National Children's Alliance, it has also brought in more funding. So it's diversified our funding, which is good. So
That's phenomenal. Thank you. Kind of just quickly go over Ouachita Parish too, that they have a building, a free building that they own, or excuse me, that is given to them, which of course allows for a little bit more money, for actual services. As Julian was saying, it can be quite expensive to rent or maybe purchase a building. And so that is money that may be kind of diverted from some of your services. So that's something to consider when you're looking at your long-term sustainability of the center and going in phases that maybe ultimately you do want to head towards a building that is provided either free of charge or owned. So that's something to think about. This building that they're using is donated. So what happens at a time, if the owner wants to claim that back for their own business purposes, that's something to think about too. And how do you maintain that relationship? So that's something to think about. Also, some communities are moving towards a kind of a campus idea. So the Salt Lake area FJC, which is operated on the YWCA, they just renovated, I believe it's it's either 1 or 2 blocks of in Salt Lake, where their housing and all their services are on site, and it's almost like it's like a campus idea. Also, Waterloo, Canada has kind of instituted the same idea. So that's a long-term what some communities are considering. And Jennifer, I wanted to pass it back to you as well. Being so close to the courthouse, you mentioned that was something that was really positive, and also the security of your building where you're located was something you had talked about. If you could continue with that a little bit.
Sure. I think the pros are definitely there. We actually have run focus groups, and our clients have let us know that they feel safer coming to this building because, unfortunately, many times the abusive partners may follow them, and so they feel as if when they're here, they're very safe. And another pro is in situations when the abusive partners do follow them, when, for example, there's an incident in the court, we're right next door, we have security, we can deal with making the police report and perhaps having to have an arrest in the basement of the building. I'm a big believer in not having an arrest on the floor of the Family Justice Center because I think there has to be a balance between security and our clients also feeling safe and free and not intimidated. So I think, though, having the detectives here and having that access has been really important. I would say, though, if you're going to be in a government building, it's really important to think about immigration and immigrant clients and people that may be more fearful of police. You know, the city of New York is a safe city, but yet, of course, it's still intimidating possibly for immigrants that may not know that. It's been so key for us to partner with groups that target immigrant populations, have them on site. We have a full-time immigration attorney so that the word can be out that the center is a safe place to come, you know, even though it's located in a law enforcement building. And we've also needed to do a lot of training with the security. The security in our building actually works for the district attorney's office and for a private security company. And so they've been wonderful in letting us do domestic violence 101 training and really just making sure that everybody's kind of on board with the mission of the center. And we also have made sure that our desk is before you go through metal detectors, but accessible to the security so it's safe, so that people can approach the desk first and not have to go through metal detectors. So we've done a lot of things to try to make sure that it's not intimidating, but I think you just need to be thoughtful about how it could possibly be intimidating to be in a very government law enforcement kind of building. And we actually don't have offenders who come to the building. They're not coming to meet with the district attorneys without their defense attorneys. But we do have a lot of offenders that follow our clients to the buildings. I think that was mentioned earlier. And, we have very tight procedures around arrests being made by the DA's office and the lobby of our building. So, that's really, really important to just always make sure you have policies about that.
Great. Thank you very much. We are almost done with our call today, and I just wanted to remind everyone that if you have questions, although you are muted, while you're listening, you can click on the question feature on your toolbar, and please go ahead and submit any questions that you might have while we have these directors on the call to pick their brains. And if you don't think of something now and want to send it later too, that's quite all right. You can email us here at the Alliance, and we'll help you with that. But I just wanted to thank you all too. I think that's the end of our presentation so far. Yes. And let's see, do we have any questions coming through? I have one, I think, from Paula. Okay, this is a question from Paula. Is it possible to address the how for developing FJCs in regarding to finding space in a rural jurisdiction? How can one locate a spare 10,000 square feet of space? I think Rebecca would have a good.
My suggestion would be to first go to your local government. Go to your county assessor's office. Go to your city or town mayor's office, and see, pitch the Family Justice Center to them. And see what kind of buy-in, because really cities own a lot of property that we as citizens of a city don't know about. We had no idea that Nampa owned this building. I have no idea the number of buildings that they own. So start with your local government and find out what is available. Find your local chamber in town, your Chamber of Commerce that has their thumb on a lot of businesses, a lot of realtors, and start there. And you really just need to start making the sell for a Family Justice Center and why you're looking for space, because believe it or not, somebody has it.
Mm-hmm. And that goes into sustainability as well. If you're looking at this as a public safety issue, that domestic violence is a public safety concern, your city or local government should be willing to help out with that issue and make it a priority and show how committed they are by giving you space. So that's something to consider. Thank you, Paula, for that question. And again, if anyone else has any questions, you're welcome to submit them via your feature on your computer. But I think that's something that's come up a few times. There's some communities that are in rural areas that they want to make sure that it's accessible, and whenever they choose the location, that it's accessible to all the clients coming in. I know that's been a concern. as opposed to being in a more metro area. People may be more familiar with taking public transportation, hopping on that subway, and getting into downtown. So that's, I know, something that's we've heard come up as a concern. Well, I think we've reached 11 o'clock, so we'll go ahead and wrap up. And thank you all for joining us. And this call will be recorded, or has been recorded, and we'll go ahead and post it on the FamilyJusticeCenter.org website, hopefully by the end of today. And we hope to see you all next month. Thank you so much.